Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Raghuram Raju from University of Hyderabad. We are doing philosophy and the paper is Philosophy of Religion and the module is on religious pluralism written by Professor Vibha Chaturvedi. One way to begin with this module or the topic of this module is, with or without our knowledge, something has happened in the past century, and that is, we have moved slowly away from the universalism or objectivistic ideals to accepting difference and pluralism. Now, when this happened, there is a need to look at this happening from two levels. One level is a descriptive level, that there is a need to look at descriptions of different communities or the very idea of difference. The other level is the level of norm. Is difference a norm, a desirable norm, or is it not a desirable norm? Has to be very systematically, judiciously, elaborately and carefully analyzed by philosophers. So, alternatively speaking, what seems to have happened in the last century is we had doubts about the promise that comes from Hegel or Marx that different communities, difference is going to be a passing phase in the journey of universalism, or we have stopped or had doubts that difference is merely an object of antiquarian curiosity to be handled by anthropology or by religious studies. Now we are confronted by a new challenge, namely, difference is going to stay. Difference may be modified, but it will not be eliminated. It is going to be there, or it is not going to be a mere passing phenomenon. So, we have the reality of difference. Now, philosophically, it is necessary to analyze what is the nature of the idea of difference, whether difference is positive or not, has to be discussed philosophically. So, if this is the social reality in front of us, and this is an idea that underlies the social reality, as I mentioned to you, namely difference as an idea, and then religious diversity is one aspect of a larger phenomena called the diversity. So let us look at religious diversity, or the new name often used in the contemporary discussion is the pluralism. Okay. Now, in addition to culture, language, music, there is religion that comes to display or reveal difference. So in the discussion, we are confronted by these two terms, religion and diversity, and it's an open question to us with regard to the primacy of either religion or diversity. What is primary? Is religion primary or is diversity primary? That's an open question, and that needs to be discussed thoroughly, and I'm not going to undertake that in this module because that requires a different treatment altogether. What I'm going to discuss, however, in this is to make the first point that religion comes to have an enormous influence through varying degrees on most of the aspects of human existence. So religion is not something that is an isolated aspect of human existence. It comes to encroach or encompass our life world in an enormously inclusive manner. If this is the fact of social or individual life, then what is important to remember in this context is that there is not one religion. There are different religions. There are different religions having common cultural beliefs or practices. Some of them also have a common history. Okay. So when two different faiths come together and have to exist together, this can raise to complexity. The complexity can be understood in the following way, that if there are more than one religions in front of us in our social life that come to have influence on individual and social existence, then it poses a set of issues in front of us. One, for instance, is understanding one's own religion. So first, I have a religion, but I don't know various aspects of this religion. So there is a need to understand my own religion or one's own religion. And secondly, if what you have in society in which you are living is not just one religion, but there are other religions, then your second task is to understand the religions of the others, which is different sometimes from understanding your own religion. It requires a more competence. It requires more empathy, or it requires more imagination. There is also a possibility where you understand other religions from the point of view of your own religion. Many times it happens without our knowledge, either consciously or unconsciously. This is the third one. There is a fourth way of understanding religious diversity, and that is we understand our own religion from the point of view of other religions. Okay. This happens in the context of people who migrate and then they have their own religion back home, and then they go and live in a place which is dominated by other religions, and then they try to understand their own religion back home from the point of view of the context of the other. And then you have yet another important segment, namely, I am not able to understand other religions because I don't understand my own religion. I belong to a religion, yet I do not know the basic tenets of my religion. So, my inability to understand my own religion can come in the way of my inability to understand other religion. So, and you can keep on adding to this complexity. The point that I am trying to make in listing out these different combinations is to bolster the claim of the module, namely, religious diversity is complex, and I have listed just now some aspects of this complexity. Now, if you understand from the above, what is covered in the above is only one religion and the other religion, but then often merely understanding one's own religion and understanding other religion is not enough. You need a third dimension, and the third dimension is very important. And what is it? The third dimension is the competence to relate, compare, contrast one religion to the other religion. Ability, the cognitive competence to relate one religion to other religion. Now, many times the problem that people face in embarking this task is lot of details become very incompatible. A religion has a particular kind of things, and other religion has exactly opposite things. So, if you enter into the details, there is not going to be much progress in trying to compare one religion with the other religion. Okay? Often, if you look at many people who embarked on the comparative religions, they, without mentioning in clearer terms, took recourse to what I call as the identification of transcendental elements in each religion. Okay? So, there are certain transcendental and universal aspects in each religion, and you relate one ideal belonging to one religion with another ideal belonging to another religion to say whether they are different or common or complementary. Okay, this is, I think, one possible trajectory where diversity or pluralism can be meaningfully undertaken. In the context of admitting the complexity, we also have to admit the fact that there are several discordants between or amongst different religions. The mere coexistence or peaceful or harmonious relation between two religions should not be taken for granted. There are instances in history where religions came to fight with each other, which is not a pleasant thing. So, a discordance between religion is also a fact, a historical fact. Okay, but that should not make us that we don't do anything about it. So, there are two aspects to diversity, or two consequences of religious diversity. One, there is a possibility to compare in a meaningful way, in an interactive mode, in an enriching mode, one religion with other religion. At the same time, simultaneously, there exist discordance, there is a conflict situation between one religion and another religion. So, now you have two important tasks, one is positive, the other one is negative in front of us when you deal with religious pluralism or diversity. In addition to these two different aspect that I mentioned to you, at a theoretical level, there can be differences within a religion, not necessarily between two religions or amongst more than two religions. Within a religion, there can be different of opinions, and if the difference of opinions increases, then there can be a split, and then you have two different sects forming from the same religious discourse. So different ways of interpreting or understanding a text or a practice can give rise to differences within a religious discourse. Now, one possible reason for the differences between two different sects within a particular religion can also be that there is a process of change and development. A lot of changes have taken place, a lot of development has taken place, and now difference arises and it becomes more, and then eventually it leads to a split of the same whole into two different parts. So this can be another reason for the conflict within a religion. So we have covered so far two important domains or sides of the relation. One is the difference between one religion and another religion, and the differences within a religion. Now let's take some concrete examples to instantiate what we have discussed so far. We have discussed that there can be different religions belonging to the same cultural root, and the big examples are the Judaism, Christianity and Islam, and the other example is various sects of Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism. So there is a commonality and there is also difference. So when we discuss religious diversity and its implication, such complexities have to be kept in mind. Unless we keep these complexities in mind, we will not be able to understand the nature of religious diversity. So difference in general and religious diversity in particular poses a serious challenge to philosophy in a manner which is different from it. It becomes a problem to other disciplines. You know why? Because philosophers have to very carefully scrutinize the idea of difference and the interaction between two different components and a common platform that you need to make this comparison. Now, at a more conceptual and abstract level, philosophy of religion has to deal with the conflicts in doctrinal claims, conflicts about ontological claims, and conflicts about truth claims. There are also epistemological problems about how does one know the transcendental element, what is the way to read a text, how does one make sense of the truth claims. So all these things pose a serious philosophical problem to philosophy of religion. We will discuss in this module whether the doctrine of different religions which are opposed to each other can all be taken as true at the same time, and issues like that. If we take the truth claim of one religion as true, then ordinarily speaking, or commonsensically speaking, or logically speaking, the denial of that truth is false, isn't it? If P is true, then not P is false. It is not possible at the surface level to accept both P and not P as being both true. That is, if there are two truth claims from two different religions and these religions are in conflict with each other, 2, it presupposes that religious doctrines are to be taken as genuine assertions that the concerned religions can be true. One may now ask whether the conflict among the doctrines of different religions is only apparent or real. In other words, this is the crucial distinction often made in philosophy of religion. People say, look, there are two conflicting claims coming from two different religions, but please remember that the difference is only in appearance and not in substance. We only looked at them differently when in fact there is no such difference. There is no difference, there is no possibility for a conflict. So it is in this context people looked at the nature of ultimate reality and the relation between man and the world and man's nature and his place in the world and what is the ultimate end of life and what are the ways of achieving this end. Some people portrayed God as a supreme being. There are others who claim that God has several forms. Some regarded God as having a physical form and worshipped idols. There are others who thought that God is purely a spiritual being and is non-material. So it's a supreme idea but not available, cannot be captured through the material things like form and things like that. So some also regarded God as personal, some regarded God as impersonal. Some, like Buddhists and Jains, did not accept any transcendental reality like God. And there are religions that believed that God created the world out of nothing and sustained it. There are others who believed that God is not a sustainer. Some regarded the world as eternal. The pantheists believed that the world and God are not ontologically distinct. In fact, they are same. Hinduism, for instance, believed in rebirth and said that every human being has several lives on this earth where the action of the past life determine the quality of the present one. Christianity and Islam believed that human beings have only one earthly life and are resurrected after death. For some religions, the ultimate goal of life is the attainment of heaven. For others, it is the grace of God, and for some others, it is liberation. So there is also differences regarding who is the messenger of God. These diverse views cannot be accepted as true at the same time. You can have differences, we can admit differences. The problem comes when you adjudicate these different claims. Sometimes these different claims are also conflicting claims. Besides, we also find a significant difference in the social organization and moral norms practiced amongst the major religions of the world. Some religions practice in a particular way, another religion practices in another way. So how does one account for, how does one deal with these differences? Some differences have been found, for instance, to create serious conflicts and confrontations among the followers of different religions. So that's why W.A. Christian is right when he says that the truth claims of different religions do conflict on issues, on major issues. So there are two ways in which religious diversity is negotiated. One is exclusivism. One religion makes a claim and then that excludes the claims of other religion. The other one is inclusivism. A religion might say that what we claim is true, but it's possible that others may have different claims and they may be either equally or partially true. That's the other way of looking at the difference. So there is a exclusivism and there is inclusivism. In addition to or in place of this exclusivism and inclusivism, a new approach have gained popularity in the later part of 20th century, namely pluralism. Pluralism is a response to religious diversity, and it accepts that all major religions of the world possess truth and values. According to pluralists, all religions have great saints and are valid. It is thus a non-hegemonic approach to different religions and tries to take a liberal view with regard to conflicting points of view. So pluralism goes beyond religious tolerance, inclusivism, and religious ecumenism. For instance, Ramana Maharshi compared the followers of different religions to the use of different ghats, that there is a pond and you take water from one side and the other person takes the water from the other side. So it is the same water that is drawn from the same pond. Okay. Similarly, there is an example of how different religions all seek or merge into a sea. Okay. So you have people like Swami Vivekananda, John Hick and others making a case for religious pluralism. In addition to Ramana Maharshi, Vivekananda and John Hick, you have Mahatma Gandhi, who comes up with an interesting interpretation of the differences. He says that there are different interpretations of religions. It is because of the limitations of human being in understanding the invisible supreme reality. Here there is a very interesting doctrine from Indian philosophy, particularly in the heterodox school of philosophy, namely Jainism. Jainism comes up with a very important doctrine called Syadvada. It is a doctrine which says that there are different kinds of looking at the same reality. The famous elephant and the seven blind man describing it is the case in point. The one blind person who holds the trunk describes it as similar to a snake. The other who touches the legs describes it as similar to a pillar, and so on. Each description is true, but only partially. So the important aspect of this school of philosophy, namely Jainism, is it is rooted in the concept of ahimsa. Because if you accept every interpretation as a valid interpretation, then there is no place for disagreeing with other person, and there is no disagreement, there is no possibility for violence. But there is this problem with accepting different kinds of explanation. Now, it is alleged that if we accept conflicting religious points of view, then it is difficult to maintain that these are partial descriptions of the same reality. When Islam talks of Allah, Christianity talks of God as Trinity, and Advaita talks of Brahman, it seems more reasonable to regard these as descriptions of different realities rather than maintain that they are descriptions of the same reality. So there are two aspects to the discussion so far, namely, there is a religious diversity and there are attempts to accommodate this diversity. as we have seen. But then accommodating level is fine. But when you take these interpretations or claims to a higher level of evaluation, then there are serious problems. The first problem is it is not clear how an atheist religion stops to be explained using this view, because you only have a explanation about the theist who believe in religion. But suppose who doesn't believe in religion, so how does that comes into the discussion. Secondly, unlike Kant, who believed that all human beings shared the same conceptual framework, those like Hick, who make a case for pluralism, claim that believers of different faiths actually experience the real through different conceptualities. One major difficulty of this view is that each religious standpoint becomes one amongst many valid points and cannot claim absolute truth for itself. Hick is aware of this and concedes that this explanation of religious diversity may be said to contradict the self-understanding of individual traditions and therefore is revisionary. We have discussed above some of the major theoretical attempts to accommodate religious pluralism. Each of these has problematic dimensions. Philosophers and theologians increasingly recognize the need to acknowledge the diversity of faiths and promote religious tolerance and dialogue. I placed before you the idea of pluralism, the idea of diversity, and how religious pluralism or diversity is one dominant aspect of the recent craving for difference. Now, the problem, it has several problems, and I've touched upon some aspects of this problem, but we need to do more work, we need to read more books, not merely in philosophy of religion, but also maybe we have to read religious texts and then try to understand how one tackles this problem that is in front of us. Thank you.